Good evening, friends. Tonight, I want to speak simply and deeply from the heart. Many of us here feel weary, weighed down by responsibilities, haunted by fears, burdened by brokenness. Maybe you have prayed 1,000 times only to feel like no one is listening. In the quiet of your room or in the noise of your mind, you've whispered to God, "Help me, Lord." That raw, humble cry is the beginning of something powerful. We all know our own weakness. We get tired, sometimes defeated, and that's okay, because in our weakness, we discover a greater strength. When we admit we cannot carry the weight alone, we open ourselves to the Lord's healing, His power, and His purpose. This is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of truth, and that truth, when acknowledged, becomes the very door through which God enters our lives. God hears, He cares. He sings over us in moments of despair. Divine compassion is not abstract, it is real and personal. When you say, "Help me, Lord," He does not respond with distant echo. He meets you in the trenches. He reaches into your pain. He lifts you out of your doubt. He gives rest to your soul and strength where you have none. But God's help isn't only about rescue. It's about transformation. When He responds to your cry, He doesn't just patch up the broken places. He rebuilds them. He molds your character, refines your faith, and equips you for a future you could never imagine by yourself. He turns your scars into stories, your trials into testimonies, your weakness into His strength. This is more than a one-time intervention. It's the beginning of a journey of trust, of surrender, of growing dependence on Him. And tonight I want to invite you to lean in, listen, be open. Let your cry, "Help me, Lord," be the starting point of something new, something transformative. Why should you stay with me for the rest of this message? Because what I share is not just encouragement, it is practical hope. You will not leave here as you came in. You will hear how God's help manifests in everyday life, in your relationships, your work, your deepest fears. You will discover not only why to trust Him, but how to do it. And you will be challenged to step forward in faith, trusting that your cry for help can become the very wellspring of God's power in your life. Now, let us turn our hearts to that cry, "Help me, Lord." Picture yourself raising your hands, your voice trembling, your spirit laid bare before God. He is listening, He is ready, and He will answer. In the days ahead, you may feel fear, uncertainty, even despair. But in between those dark moments, remember this: when you call out, you are not alone. The Lord stands ready. He is faithful. He is strong. He is yours. So tonight, I beg you, pray honestly, call out boldly. Let the words, "Help me, Lord," be not just a plea, but a declaration. God, I surrender to you. I trust you, and whatever comes next, I will walk with you, because His help is not just a temporary fix. It's a transforming power. May God meet you here. May He lift you up. May His strength become your strength, and may your cry for help become the greatest invitation to His glory. Amen. When I speak of a cry from the heart, I'm not talking about polished prayers or carefully crafted words. I'm talking about the kind of cry that rises without your permission, the cry that erupts when life presses harder than your strength can bear. You know that moment, don't you? When you find yourself in the middle of the night staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, whispering through trembling lips, "Help me, Lord." That's not weakness. That is truth. That is honesty. That is the moment heaven leans close. Because when your heart cries out, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're not trying to explain your pain. You're not trying to pretend you're okay. You're just opening the deepest, rawest part of your soul to the only one who can actually reach into it. And I want you to hear me. God responds to that kind of cry, not the rehearsed one, not the memorized one, but the one soaked in sincerity, desperation, and faith that's hanging by one fragile thread. Every person in this room knows what it feels like to come to the end of themselves. Some of you have smiled all day while your heart has been breaking. Some of you are carrying responsibilities that nobody sees, pressures that nobody understands, fears that nobody knows you fight through. But you know, God knows, and that is why that cry That simple, honest, unfiltered, "Help me, Lord," is so powerful. It's the moment you stop performing and start surrendering. There's something sacred about reaching the point where your heart can no longer hide behind your words. Something holy about the moment you finally admit that you can't do it alone. And in that space, that fragile, trembling space, God does his greatest work. He doesn't wait for you to be strong enough. He doesn't wait for you to have the right vocabulary. He doesn't wait until your life looks put together. He steps into the moment when your soul cracks open and the truth pours out. Maybe right now you're facing confusion that doesn't make sense. Maybe you're standing in a place where you don't know whether to turn left or right. Maybe you're tired, not just physically, but down to the bone. Tired of pretending, tired of pushing, tired of being the strong one. That's where this keynote begins. Not with your strength, but with your surrender. Not with your ability, but with your honesty. And I want you to lean in for a moment, because this is the engaging truth that grabs your spirit and refuses to let go. Your cry is not a sign that God is far away. It's evidence that he is near. People may ignore your pain, but God listens to the sound of your soul. People may overlook your tears, but God counts every single one. People may not understand your struggle, but God knows the story behind every silent battle you've ever fought. So don't silence the cry. Don't hide the hurt. Don't bury the ache behind a forced smile. Lift it up. Speak it out. Let your heart say what your mind is too tired to articulate. Help me, Lord. Because it's in that cry, the cry from the heart, where God begins to move, to heal, to strengthen, and to lead you into the very places you thought you'd never survive, much less overcome. That cry is the beginning of everything. When I talk about the reality of human weakness, I'm not pointing a finger at you. I'm standing right beside you, because every one of us, no matter how strong we appear, reaches moments where our strength runs out. And it's in those moments that our humanity becomes unmistakably clear. You can pretend to be strong for a while. You can hold yourself together, tighten your jaw, keep pushing forward. But sooner or later, life applies pressure that exposes the cracks. And it is in those cracks where God's light begins to shine. Look at your own life for a moment. You've had seasons where your emotions felt like a storm you couldn't calm. Seasons where your thoughts battled you more than the world did. Seasons where discouragement whispered louder than hope. And while you tried to smile, tried to stay composed, tried to convince others that everything was fine, inside you were fighting battles they couldn't see. That's the reality of being human, trying to stand tall while your heart is collapsing inside. Some of you today are carrying burdens that would break most people. You've been strong for your family. You've held it together at work. You've kept smiling even when fear was clawing at your chest. But deep inside, you know that the strength you display doesn't match the weakness you feel. And that tension, that quiet war between what you show and what you carry, is the reason your spirit keeps whispering, "Help me, Lord." Whom in weakness isn't a flaw, it's a reminder. A reminder that we were never created to shoulder life alone. You weren't designed to carry every worry, answer every question, fix every crisis, and heal every wound. And the moment you accept that truth, something powerful happens. The pressure to be superhuman finally breaks, and the invitation to be honest before God opens wide. Let me tell you something engaging, something that grips the heart. Your weakness is not an obstacle to God. It's the very place where his strength is revealed. You may feel like you're failing, but God sees a heart ready for his power. You may feel like you're breaking, but God sees a soul he's shaping. You may feel overwhelmed, but God sees an opportunity to show you that you don't have to hold everything together, because he already is. Think about the moments that shook you the most. The moments when you thought you were at the end. The moments when you sat in silence, not because you had peace, but because you had nothing left to say. In those moments, you saw the truth. You are limited. You are fragile. You are human. But you also discovered something else, that the Lord is strong where you are weak, present where you feel alone, steady where you feel unstable. So let me speak directly to the one who feels exhausted. It's okay if you can't do it all. It's okay if you're not strong every day. It's okay if your heart feels heavy. Your weakness does not disqualify you. It prepares you. It humbles you. It positions you in a place where God can take over what you cannot carry. And maybe that's why you're listening right now, because you're finally ready to admit that you don't want to keep pretending. You don't want to keep pushing yourself beyond the limit. You don't want to keep performing strength you don't have. Deep down, you're longing for the freedom of saying, Lord, I can't, but I know you can. That's the reality of human weakness. It's not the end of you. It's the beginning of God's greatest work in you. And the moment you whisper, Lord, I can't, but I know you can, something shifts inside you, because right there, in that confession of weakness, you begin to encounter something far greater than human strength, far deeper than human understanding, the unfailing compassion of God. And if you've ever felt the warmth of that compassion settle over your weary soul, then you know it is unlike anything this world can offer. God's compassion is not theoretical. It is not an idea you memorize or a concept you debate. It is a living reality. It moves toward you. It leans in. It surrounds you. When everyone else pulls back because your pain feels too heavy, God steps closer. When others become exhausted by the weight of your struggle, God never grows tired. When the world runs out of patience, He remains endlessly patient with you, because His compassion doesn't fluctuate with your behavior, your emotions, or your circumstances. It flows from His very heart. And this is why I want you to understand this truth deeply. Your weakness is not where God turns away. It is where He turns toward you. Some of you have been afraid to bring your struggles to God because you think they disappoint Him. But He is not repelled by your brokenness. He is drawn to it. He is moved by it. He is stirred by every ache you feel, every tear you've cried, every worry you've carried alone. Right now, as you sit with the reality of your limitations still lingering in your mind, I want you to see God leaning in with compassion. See Him noticing the tremble in your spirit. See Him hearing the question you haven't dared to say out loud. See Him reaching out, not with judgment, but with the gentlest touch, the kind that says, I see you, I know you, and I'm here. This is where the speech becomes intensely personal, because some of you have grown up believing that God only responds to perfection. Others were taught that He moves only when you've done everything right. But compassion doesn't wait for conditions. Compassion moves because love is who He is. And when He sees a child struggling, He doesn't wait for you to pull yourself together. He steps in to hold you together. Feel the weight of that truth. God is not distant from your pain. He is deeply invested in it. When you walked through that heartbreak, He was present. When you carried that fear silently, He noticed. When you felt like nobody understood, He understood completely. His compassion is not a polite sympathy. It is a fierce, committed, unwavering love that refuses to let you sink under the weight of life. And this is the engaging truth that pulls every listener closer. The compassion of God is not passive. It acts, it supports, it strengthens, it lifts. His compassion becomes the hand that steadies you when your knees buckle, the voice that quiets your anxious thoughts, the peace that settles over the storm inside your mind. It is the reason you didn't break when everything around you felt like it was falling apart. So as you acknowledge your weakness, don't stop there. Lift your eyes, because God's compassion is already meeting you in the very place where you feel least worthy, least strong, least capable. And that compassion isn't temporary. It doesn't fade when the crisis passes. It follows you, surrounds you, carries you, because you matter to Him more than you have ever dared to believe will. And when you finally begin to grasp just how deeply you matter to Him, something remarkable begins to unfold inside your spirit, because the compassion of God is never meant to leave you where it found you. It doesn't simply comfort you. it transforms you. And that is the beauty of this journey. The very place where you feel inadequate becomes the place where God begins his greatest work of transformation. You see, when his compassion meets your weakness, it doesn't just soothe your pain, it reshapes your identity. It shifts the way you think, the way you stand, the way you walk through life. God is not content with merely lifting you out of despair. He desires to develop you, strengthen you, refine you, and prepare you. His help is not a temporary band-aid. It is a divine renovation of the heart. Some of you have cried out, "Help me, Lord," hoping for quick relief, a sudden turnaround, a momentary rescue. But God looks far deeper than the surface. He sees where your confidence has been shaken, where your courage has been bruised, where your hope has been stretched thin. And instead of giving you a short-term fix, he begins a long-term transformation, a process that takes your weakness and rewrites it into testimony. You may not notice it at first. Transformation rarely begins with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with a whisper, a new strength rising inside you that you can't explain, a peace settling over your heart in moments where you used to panic, a resilience growing where fear used to live. And slowly, quietly, beautifully, God begins turning your vulnerability into victory. This is the engaging truth that grips every heart listening. God answers your cry for help not just by changing your situation, but by changing you. He equips you for battles you never thought you could face. He strengthens you for paths you once feared to walk. He molds your character so that what once broke you now becomes the very thing you rise above. Think back to the moments that once crushed you, the losses, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the failures. At the time, it felt like the end. But now, even if you can't fully see it yet, God is shaping something in you through those very moments. He is teaching you how to stand with a stronger faith, walk with a steadier heart, and live with a deeper trust in him. And here is what I want you to understand with absolute clarity. God's transformation is intentional. Nothing is wasted, not your tears, not your questions, not your struggles. He takes every broken piece and rearranges it into purpose. Where you once saw only pain, he begins to reveal meaning. Where you once felt defeated, he begins to release strength. Where you once doubted your future, he begins to rebuild it brick by brick, promise by promise. Some of you are standing in the middle of that transformation right now. You can feel something shifting, even if you can't fully describe it. You sense God's hand on your heart, his voice guiding your steps, his power carrying you forward. And maybe for the first time, you're beginning to realize that the cry, "Help me, Lord," was not a sign of your collapse. It was the doorway to your transformation. This is where your story begins to turn. Not because your circumstances changed instantly, but because you are changing. His compassion held you, but his transformation is now shaping you for purpose, shaping you for strength, shaping you for a future far greater than the one you feared. And as that transformation begins to take shape within you, there comes a moment when you realize that this isn't just about surviving what hurt you. It's about stepping into something greater than you imagine, because God never transforms you for no reason. He shapes you for a journey of deeper faith, stronger trust, and unshakable purpose. And this is where the final truth rises. He invites you into a walk with him that changes everything. This is not a journey of perfection. It's a journey of dependence. It's not a journey where you pretend to have all the answers. It's one where you learn to trust the one who does. And as you move forward, transform from within, God invites you to lean into him in ways you never did before. You begin to understand that the cry, "Help me, Lord," is not a one-moment plea. It becomes the rhythm of a life that walks closely with him. Let me speak this into your heart. God does not transform you in secret just to leave you standing still. He calls you forward. He calls you closer. He calls you deeper. You might not know where every step will lead, but you begin to realize that the one leading you is trustworthy. And when you've experienced his compassion, when you've felt his steady hand in your weakness, when you've watched him reshape the broken pieces of your life, how could you not follow him into whatever comes next? This journey he invites you into is not defined by fear anymore. It's not shaped by the failures of your past or the anxieties you carry. It's shaped by faith, faith that has been tested, strengthened, and anchored in the God who never walked away. And that faith compels you to keep going even when the road looks uncertain. Because now you know that he doesn't lead you into darkness, he leads you through it. Some of you have spent years walking in circles trying to figure out your life on your own. You've tried your plans, your strength, your timing, and every time you ended up exhausted, empty, or disappointed. But something is different now. You've cried out to him. You've felt his compassion. You've seen his transforming power. And now he's inviting you to walk in step with him, not dragging behind in fear, not running ahead in self-reliance, but walking with him, trusting him, leaning on him every single day. And here's what grips the heart so powerfully. When you accept that invitation, your entire life begins to realign. Your priorities shift. Your decisions change. Your confidence grows. You start to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities for God to reveal his strength through you. You begin to recognize his fingerprints on moments you once thought were random. You understand that nothing you have gone through was wasted. It was preparation. This journey with God becomes the place where your faith comes alive, where your prayers deepen, where your understanding expands, where you stop settling for survival and start living with purpose. And as you walk with him day by day, you discover something extraordinary. The cry, "Help me, Lord," is not a cry of desperation anymore. It's a cry of relationship, a cry of trust, a cry of connection. It is the voice of someone who knows that God is not only able, but willing, not only powerful, but present, not only compassionate, but committed. And with every step you take on this journey, you're reminded that you're not walking alone. You're walking with the one who answered your weakest cry, lifted your heaviest burden, reshaped your deepest wounds, and invited you into a life you could never build without him.